Okay, so we're talking to Nick Hudson right now from England. Hi, Nick.
Hey, Carisa, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
All good, thank you. Yeah.
So it's really a pleasure, an absolute pleasure to speak with you today. I've been a fan of yours for many years.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I love all of your albums, and I'm especially excited about this album, Letters to the Dead.
Cool, thank you.
And so this is for everyone that has never heard your music and doesn't know who you are. How would you best describe yourself? Like, what genre do you often use to describe yourself?
I have like I imagine a lot of musicians do, I have a real issue explaining that. I find it very hard, but I tend to think, my background is sort of classical.
Yeah.
But I jumped out of that in a sort of reactionary teenage fashion when I was about 16, and then threw myself headlong into experimental music.
Mm-hmm.
And so they kind of fuse, but then also in the middle there's this like huge love and respect for songwriting, and so it's where they all triangulate. I think that's the point where my music sits mainly.
That's really beautiful, actually. I think that's pretty accurate as far as.
Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does. Because I was going to say, I mean, there's definite songwriting in there, and there's definitely a really strong classical influence as well, but it's also very experimental and very, almost like transgressive, you know? Yeah, I mean, it's, definitely can't be defined by any one of them, but maybe together there's something that you can put together.
Those are three enormous areas of interest for me. But also, it's influenced a lot by experimental theatre and world cinema and all this other stuff, you know. And especially lyrically, I always write prose and poetry first, long before I composed any music, really. And then it was only about 10 years ago that I started fusing them all together. Songs or whatever, you know.
When did you start writing music? When did you actually start? Well, actually, when did you start performing music? Because a lot of people start performing.
Apart from a few piano recitals when I was studying piano that I'd rather forget. Actual performing started about how old am I? 38 years ago. It started more or less. Yeah. And that was just.
Wow.
You remember when I was making the Phoenix Diaries? I made this 7-album cycle of like really self-eviscerating, confessional, naked, lo-fi songs.
Yeah.
Well, I first performed those in a tiny bar in Brighton about 8 years ago.
Wow.
And really, really nervous and sort of untrained and under-rehearsed, but it was... I met some interesting people and managed to disown some of my family who were visiting who lived locally because they were so abhorred by the lyrics.
Oh, wow.
Wow. To which I said, you know, they're kind of stories. Okay, there's a kernel of truth to them, but they're just stories, and if you can't contextualise that, then, you know, deal with it.
Yeah. So, wow. And what inspired you to get into writing and performing? Like, what was the...
Well, good God, what was it? I wasn't interested in it. I never actually thought that I would pursue this route professionally, as it were, or with as pure a zeal as I have done. But yes, I'd moved back home after university, and I was having a really crummy time, and it was worsening. And I thought, okay, you know, I've always written in the sense of prose and poetry rather than songcraft. I thought I could probably write my way out of this, or I could just stay here and deteriorate indefinitely. So I was working a crap bar job, and I managed to save up enough for a laptop and a microphone. I just got into Jam Deck at the time. Do you know the Texan outsider blues musician?
No, I don't. I'll have to...
He's this sort of self-recording inspired lunatic who's released about, I don't know, 300 albums or something in the last 30 years.
Wow.
But the self-recording thing really appealed to me. I thought, well, hang on a minute, I don't need to have access to Abbey Road to make songs, so let's see how it goes. You know?
Yeah.
So I bought a really crap mic for about 20 quid and wrote about 6 songs in one night, and then it just hadn't stopped, so, yeah.
That's amazing. That's really interesting.
Yeah, or mentally ill, I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, no, it's very interesting how that can inspire so much when you just realise that there's no limitation to what you can actually do.
Yeah.
It allows you to go somewhere that you might not have gone otherwise.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's really encouraging, actually, if you can be self-sufficient, you know.
Yeah.
And I still am to a large extent. I mean, there's obviously a lot of people who, well, sort of an extended family of people who support and collaborate with me, musically and otherwise. But it's still very much DIY in its principles.
Yeah.
Because I still self-record in the room that, you know, I'm recording this in now, so... But it's just the equipment's got better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And also my ear has got better, and I'm self-taught as a producer, but my, you know, it's trial and error, as you know, so...
Yeah. That's amazing. I really kind of feel like that's just where the world has gone, you know?
Out of necessity, absolutely. Yeah.
And it's really amazing because I feel like, you know, it does make space for different sounds in production as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know,
and also the untrained producer can often produce far more interesting records than somebody who's gone to music production school and been taught how to mix properly or been taught how to pan properly, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
There's obviously a place for all of that, but...
yeah, I mean, but you get taught, you know, to produce through certain, you know, ingredients and the spices. The meal's going to taste the same a lot of the time.
Exactly.
Or similar. So, I mean, wow, so this is the room that you record in as well, and...
Yeah.
That's cool.
Pretty much. Although on Letters to the Dead, I did... Because with Letters to the Dead, I wanted to record only acoustic instruments, and I don't have an acoustic piano in my room. I had to blag my way into recording studios around Brighton and borrow their mics for as little as possible, and I'm still fairly budgetless. But so I recorded all the acoustic pianos elsewhere. Mm-hmm. And there's a choir on the record as well, and I recorded those in St Mary's Church, which is very, very close to my flat where I record.
How is that working with a choir? Because that's like kind of... That's
amazing.
It's
kind of an ad hoc choir that I formed out of a lot of friends of mine. I'm fortunate to know some really excellent singers, so I just said, hey, I need a choir, and it's you. So they all
awesome.
Flatteringly obliged and turned up at the church on time, and there were about 10 of them. It was a really, really nice session, really lovely session. Wow. Mainly unison parts, but worth it. And the acoustics are so great in there.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds incredible. It really... I was curious as to what the recording process for this album was like, because it does really sound, you know, it just has a space in it that I can't really even think of the right words to describe it. It's just, you can feel the presence, I guess, of a larger room with the piano, you know?
Yeah. No, absolutely. You're right. And that's
sometimes,
I've been listening to loads of later period Talk and Mark Hollis, and the space on those records and the richness, the overhanging sonorities of pianos and guitars and horns and everything.
Oh my god, that's so funny. I'm really into that as well.
They're amazing.
Yeah. Absolutely. So that must be, because I mean, I love the space in that, and I can feel that space in the album too. And that's something
there are deliberately really sparse arrangements on certain tracks. It's quite a lyric-heavy record as well, so I wanted those to be at least audible, if not totally comprehensible. You know, there's a film attached to it as well. Did I mention that?
What's that? Oh yes, the film.
Yeah.
I was curious about the film. So the film is an actual, because the album is the album is like a story, is basically like a play. And so, is the film an actual rendition of that story?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
And that was so much fun to film. And actually, most of the new cast, or a lot of the cast, are actually people who perform on the record. And
wow.
It's all quite... it's just like one big ensemble that are applying themselves to different aspects of the entire piece.
Yeah.
But the film was enormous fun to make, and, for instance, it's called Letters to the Dead because there are 3 letters written in the first half of the records from a father to his estranged child, and this father is a writer who has his writer's desk moored on the fringes of the coastline. He's essentially, and he folds these letters that he's written into origami boats and sails them off into the ocean. And so there was like a sort of a slightly Herzog moment as we carted the desk from my room way up the beach.
Oh my
god!
God!
A mile and a half onto the rock pools beyond Brighton Marina. Stationed them right out at sea, and had my friend Gary Goodman, who's an amazing poet and painter, he was playing the father, had him sitting writing these letters at this desk that was moored on these rock pools.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And people can get a copy of this movie if they get the album on vinyl, right? There's a DVD that comes with it. So, and I mean, that's going to be ready around December, right?
Yeah.
But people, if they, get the vinyl, they'll also get, the full
DVD.
DVD where they can see this. But it's also being screened in Brighton as well. What date is it being screened again? It's
October the 28th.
The 28th. Yeah, I remembered it was like the end of the month.
And it's at 7 o'clock. No, it's at 10 o'clock, sorry. Mm-hmm. And there's a Q&A. For better or worse, there's a Q&A with me afterwards. So.
Are you in the film yourself, or?
Very, very fleetingly, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm... Yeah, there's a mild attempt at disguising me because I've no real interest in being an actor, but I do play the anchorman. I play the newsreader, so which I actually really enjoyed. It was a lot of fun to do, but it's only brief and fleeting. The real performances are elsewhere,
Yeah. And obviously you wrote it. Were you instrumental in sort of, designing the look of it as well? Yeah.
It was a pretty mutual collaboration between myself and Chris Purdy, who's this really brilliant director from London.
Mm-hmm.
He came down sort of 3 or 4 weekends over the course of 3 months, and we assembled a cast who were amazingly always ready and eager to perform and do really quite strange things. And but Chris and I, he did all the cinematography pretty much, and initially we sort of designed all the shots together, but obviously with any collaboration, trust creeps in, and then we have to just let him get on with it, and I kind of direct the actors and he'll deal with the visual aspects, really. So, yeah.
Okay.
It's looking good. Looking really good. We were really lucky with the natural light as well, because we filmed it entirely using natural light, apart from the seance sequence, which we filmed in a really dank cellar. Mm-hmm. That was all candlelight and strobes, but otherwise it was all sunlight or moonlight. And the weather was on our side, and the light was just so generous. We got some amazing shots of these undead ocean-dwelling sprites emerging from the sea against the sunset. Wow. It's eerie and beguiling. It worked out really well. We were really lucky.
Yeah, I find with visual stuff, there is just visual stuff seems to be. I mean, and audio stuff too, but especially with photographs or film or anything like that, you're always co-creating with space or nature or something beyond yourself, because it's just magic. I mean, the shots that come out, you can't plan them, to be how they are. They're just
and that's why it's so appealing to the actor.
That
actually does feel somewhat pagan. You're submitting to forces and energies beyond your control, and it's exciting for that reason.
Yeah. I mean, whatever name you give it, you can. Whatever you call it, you're definitely co-creating somehow with the space that you're in, because you can't control it, and once it's photographed, it is a thing into itself. It's no longer.
Yeah.
So I can ask what inspires you generally, but also what inspired this record, because it's different to the other projects in that it was a 2-year, very intensive process of recording and creating.
I sort of, I think I'm quite reactionary, so each record is a kind of reactionary response, or the strategies employed in making the record are reactions against the strategies employed in making the previous record. So the one before this was called A Day Without Comfort, and it was completely solo.
Yeah.
It was songs. It was straight up songs, and it was quite politically agitated songs. But it was lots of strummed guitars and wailing, you know. And it was quite concise and compact. So I thought for the next one I want to make something the equivalent of a sort of modern classical record on a zero budget or a very little budget. But with doom metal undertones, because I've entered into some quite exciting friendships with a lot of the sort of doom metal and avant musician crowd from New York and Seattle, like bands like Chaodot and Asva, who have. It's developed into mutual admiration, and it's really exciting. And the support is lovely, and it sort of feels like a international family. And Chaodot, a lot of the members of Chaodot appear on the record, which is wonderful, you know.
Wow.
It started out as a bunch of piano compositions, and then the narrative theme started surfacing, and it always happens really intuitively initially, and then I start to wrap it into something more concrete.
And so it was something that kind of just basically dreamed itself into being through that.
Yeah, completely that. I've written entire scenarios and songs for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the honor to be more in the realms of. I actually think it's a piece of experimental theatre, but manifesting music. If that doesn't sound too.
Yeah. No. I mean, it kind of is. I mean, it's read that way, almost like as a menu, right? So
yeah. And also the sequence is completely chronological. It tells the entire story from 0 to 60. You know.
Is that going to be available for people, like with the record? Like, are they going to be able to look at that too?
Yeah, I'm going to issue a little chapbook or a zine.
Okay, cool.
Like a libretto booklet in a sense, but with also lots of full colour artwork and stills from the film and everything.
That's awesome.
This might be an limited edition because of just budgetary restraints generally.
Yeah.
We're not able to issue a full-on lyric booklet with the record or the CD, as you would normally with a liner notes, etc. But want to issue it separately, make it available, and also make a PDF available to people who don't want to or can't afford to invest in the booklet. So I want all the information available. Yeah.
That sounds amazing. That's really nice. So, is there anything in general that inspires you?
Without wishing to say everything. No, it's cool. Lots, actually. I don't know, I mean, my favourite artists, or amongst my favourite artists, are people like Robert Wilson, the New York avant-garde theatre director, who I think is one of the most astonishing visual and textual artists ever. I really, really admire and respect his work. And Tarkovsky, Andrei Tarkovsky, the Soviet director, his stuff completely kills me. Otherwise, people like, basically the sort of singular mavericks like Björk or Scott Walker and people like that, you know. And Radiohead and the Smiths as well. And contemporary classical music like Penderecki and Goreski, a lot of Eastern Europeans. And what else? And Dennis Cooper as well, US author. I'm sure you're aware of. His stuff influenced me very much early on, or sort of gave me the confidence to express deep-seated concerns and anxieties in a way that I didn't feel. Basically, sort of shed me a lot of inhibitions, which was obviously necessary. So
a very inspirational person.
Yeah, absolutely. But otherwise, just observational stuff. Like I'm walking around the streets and I see social interactions, and something in it appeals to me or charges me, and then I go home and use that as a kernel to build something out of and write it into something else. which usually doesn't resemble the initial term
thing, yeah. That's awesome. Well, I have a couple of little Magic Monster questions to ask. Okay, so one of our interviewers asks people what makes them angry, but I don't do that one. I ask what makes you happy.
Okay, the flippant answer is having a day off, but what makes me happy?
Well, little pleasures are good, a day off. A lot of people say that one.
No, absolutely. My food makes me happy. Good food makes me happy. What else? Seeing Robert Wilson performances makes me happy. I've been lucky to see Einstein on the beach this year, which was the most ecstatic 5 hours ever. My relationship with Joe, my partner of 3 years and counting, makes me extremely happy. Gives me a sense of peace, which is lovely. Not all the time, of course, but all the time it does. Hanging out with friends and socialising, obviously, is a real cathartic letting off of steam after these sort of things. And seeing a project through to fruition, in the knowledge that I've thrown as much of myself at it as I can, that gives me a sense of happiness and serenity as well. So, yeah.
That's a good answer.
Does that work? Okay.
Yeah. There's another Magic Monster question.
Good, I'm enjoying them. Go on.
Okay, so, do you have any phobias, first of all? Before I get, because that is actually another one, but there's another one after
that. I don't know, really. I used to. I think a big one that I used to suffer and contemplate was having a lack of lucidity or a lack of clarity, which I equate with like proper insanity, is when your ability to process and assess and communicate information is sullied. I find that idea really, really frightening. So,
is it like a lack of control?
Not a lack of control, a lack of clarity of clear vision, if you like, whatever that means to person, but yeah.
Okay, so this is the crowning Magic Monster question. What is your favourite monster? And it doesn't have to be your favourite monster, but it could be like the monster you're most afraid of. Just
okay. This is a big one. Hang on a minute. My mind immediately goes to Sesame Street, which is ridiculous. Isn't it?
No, it's fine. Some people have chosen Sesame Street. People.
My favourite monster. Hang on a second.
Is it any monster that intrigued you or scared you?
Can I list a few? You
can list a few, yep.
Well, one is Hannibal Lecter. I think it's a great character. Curiously seductive. What else? Medea? Yeah. But that's because she's been on my mind quite a bit, or it's been on my mind quite a bit, because of Letters to the Dead, and there are parallels between the mother in Max and Medea. What else?
What about Medea is intriguing?
I'm not entirely fluent in the entire narrative, but I know from other works based on it that it is about a mother who coldly murders her child. So I find manifestations of that in art really fascinating, because it's probably the most heinous thing a woman can do in the eyes of society, to abandon murder their child, So that I find intriguing, and it's one of the driving principles behind Letters to the Dead, actually.
Yeah, so. I know, yeah. I mean, I saw the connection there. I was just interested in what fascinates, it's the paradox of
exactly. Yeah. It's just so beyond what most people who participate in Western society or any society would deem legitimate, so obviously it's fascinating. Yeah. Other monsters, though. Hang on a minute. I like this question. I'm trying to think. God, I don't think of. I've just got so many morbid answers, like Ian Brody, for instance. You know, like, do you aware of Ian
The
Brody?
Brody, the murderer.
Yeah, Moore's Murderers.
Yeah,
Like
Moore's murderer. Yeah, he's
like
pretty
he's so
funny.
post-human. It's intriguing, you know.
Mm-hmm. See, what happens is if you say your favourite monsters enough, you find the pattern.
Yeah.
Right,
yeah.
and like if I asked you, like you just told me what you found fascinating about him, it was like that.
Yeah.
And it was the same as the mother, and kind of, is there maybe something similar about that with Hannibal Lecter too?
It's the post-human thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's post-human, but
and
still
if you notice that matches your fear as well, that's kind of...
Say again?
It kind of matches your fear too, a little bit.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so this has been a good session on the couch. Thank you, Dr. Mellado. Actually, my favourite monster is a zombie. Yeah, of course it is.
It's a zombie?
Yeah.
I was going to ask you that when you told me what your phobia was.
Yeah.
Because you described your phobia in the same way that people describe their fear of zombies when they explain their favourite monster.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, it sounds like you're saying a zombie. And then I was thinking, I wonder if your favourite monster is a zombie. But then,
no, it is, yeah. Obviously it is, yeah. That hadn't occurred to me, but it is, yeah. I really like zombie movies. And I'm about to piece of zombie fiction as well, so... Yeah.
Oh, wow. Awesome. Well, it's been really, really great to talk with you. So, people, check out Nick Hudson on Facebook, Letters to the Dead. Check out the preview. Thank you so much, Nick. It's been
lovely to talk to you.
Thank you. Thanks. It's been an honour.